and welcome to another episode of Infrastructure Matters. I'm joined today by Tim and Anthony from BMC. Hey guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
So, topic today, and it's an interesting one, I think. I spend a bunch of time getting briefed by you, Anthony.
Yep.
You always give me a really great perspective from the DevX portfolio and where the developer's going. But we're seeing the regulatory frameworks change. We're seeing DORA, not only just in Europe, but a global impact coming through. So I think what I want to drill down in today is kind of where that CI/CD pipeline and the developer focus kind of impacts onto resilience. So maybe, Tim, thoughts?
So I think the interesting shift that we're seeing in the industry around this is that people have to start thinking in a bigger picture. Mm-hmm. They have to build resiliency into their strategy, into their architecture earlier than maybe they had in the past. Because if you think about it, mainframe
build for resilience, basically.
Right, exactly. Build for that, because when you're on the mainframe and that's all you have to worry about, you're on basically a single system. So as long as you protect your mainframe and you protect the core services, you pretty much can rest assured that your applications will continue to work because all your core services are right there. But that's not the world we live in today, mainframe and other.
More connected,
more
attached,
more web services. What are you going to do when your AWS service has an outage? What are you going to do when your network provider has an outage? What is your plan for how to do that? And how does that affect how you design your applications in such a way that you're resilient to whatever could potentially happen to you? That thought process, that reliability engineering really makes you take a step back and think about the whole process. And then we blend that with the DevOps, because now you have to think about how do you ensure that you're testing for that you're checking on that every step of the way. And your automation isn't just about building the little piece parts, it's about ensuring that you have the feedback loops that feed that as well.
That end-to-end view. Yes. And Tony, you do a great job of sort of being that voice of the developer. Are you seeing that sort of designing for resilience starting to come through?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's that old saying, security is everybody's job. If you've worked in anywhere, security is everybody's job. Well, it's coming to be that resilience is everybody's job.
And is DORA driving that, do you think, or is it wider than that?
I think DORA is a catalyst to it. I don't know that it's driving it, but I think now DORA puts some bones around why is resilience top of mind.
Yeah.
Now, that said, you have to, like Tim is alluding to, resilience is something you have to build into your architecture day one. And just like with like with any other platform, CI/CD needs to take that into account. Your pipelines, your processes need to take into account not just resilience of the application, the end application in production, and how do I make sure that if there's an outage, if there's a problem, I can quickly and easily resolve that without no muss, no fuss, but also resilience of your DevOps platform. What happens if there's an issue and my DevOps platform can't operate and my DevOps platform can't go down? So you have to build resilience at every level of this as you're going up in order to make sure that you're able to react to any problems that may come up.
One of the things we're seeing is automated testing as part of that CI/CD pipeline. Obviously we're going down a level there in the detail, but do you see that fitting within that wider context?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone thinks my testing is just, I write a test script and I test I pass in 2 + 2 into my application and 4 comes out, hey, it all works. But you need to put in testing towards that resiliency. Your automated testing needs to make sure that your system can handle things like services being out, capabilities being down, negative case testing. What happens?
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, exactly. It may be hard to say and hard to do in some cases, but it's necessary. You have to build in that negative loop to see how is my system going to react. And I think your mature DevOps organizations, this is what they think about. This is what they do.
So Tim, I'm seeing that lead into sort of more rigorous monitoring tools throughout the CI/CD pipeline. Are you seeing the same thing?
Oh, absolutely, because here's the real let's say, emphasis of automation and CI/CD pipelines, and automation in any respect, it's okay if you can do something once, right? Automation means that you're creating the environment where you do it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And that you get the results
repeatable,
and the repeatable results, because then you use the observability of that data, of those results, and you make decisions on what you're seeing and use that to then feed your next development decisions. And that's kind of the infinity loop of DevOps. Yeah. And that's, honestly, it's a part that often gets missed when companies get started. They really tend to focus heavily on the development side of things and trying to build things to take them from change to production. But it's really important to understand that feedback loop needs to come back through and say, okay, but let's make sure we're monitoring our performance. Did we improve performance over time? Trending analysis? Are we starting to experience problems with that? Are data patterns growing in such a way that we need to make a plan change ahead of time and get ahead of that curve and so on? So observability, being able to make decisions, being able to leverage artificial intelligence with that in a measured, reasonable way really helps you build a solid reliable resiliency into your overall environment, because you're taking into account all these different factors.
And I think to your question about this is where DORA is pushing the merging of dev and ops. DevOps was always supposed to be a merging of dev and ops. Now DORA is forcing everyone's hand to truly embrace this handoff between the two and the feedback.
Yep. So are you seeing that come through in the collaboration? The tools are great, the tools that you guys produce are powering this, but unless you get that collaboration between dev and ops, you can't really architect for resilience. Right. So are you starting to see that come through at the people side as well as the tool side?
I was going to say it's always been a culture issue.
That's always
DevOps is a culture problem first and foremost. If your people aren't empowered and they're not engaged and they don't see the value of this, they're going to pay lip service to it.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many companies that, an executive reads this article about Agile, or they read this article about DevOps, and they go to their IT team, and their IT team they don't want to deal with it, and they just simply go, oh yeah, we do that. We're already doing that. It's different words,
They're
but
not
we do the
living
same
it,
thing.
basically.
They're not actually doing it. And it's very easy for us in any line of business to rationalize what we're doing as, oh well, that's what we're doing. But when you really stop to think about the benefits of this and the process that it puts us in a more competitive state, and it allows us to execute better. That's what's important about all of this. Whatever words and buzzwords you put on it, what matters is, are we better today than we were last year? Are we better able to do that? That's the important part of this whole story, is continuous improvement, resiliency, being a better company tomorrow than we are today.
And you have to build the monitoring and observability in to be able to measure that.
Yeah.
Because, I've said it a million times, and I'll say it again, if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. Yeah. If you can't prove that you are incrementally better tomorrow than you are today, then you're not really incrementally better.
You can't instrument it and measure it,
exactly.
You're not making that progress. So, as we start to wrap here, what would those, I'll come to both of you, what would those 3 key takeaways be from people wanting to learn more, understand more, keep them sound bites, but what would you say are those 3 key takeaways?
Observability, being willing to grapple with the metrics, understand what actually is important. What are those key performance indicators for your business? What makes you money and what makes you better? Focusing on that and having an automated way to gather that information. Don't make it a data call where you have to call up 5 people and say, all right, give me your numbers for last month. This should be flowing to you from a dashboard, not about your system, but about how your tools are being used, how your processes are working, so that you can measure progress of your organization as a business. And that that goes into the whole Moneyball type of mentality. you'd think IT is very, technical and specific, and we're numbers driven. Honestly, if you work in this industry, a lot of people are very used to doing things a certain way. And so helping people focus on those metrics and think about how could I get better helps break that down, and that's kind of that Moneyball type of mentality where, where you're measuring players on what they're doing, not just how do they look
What
on
they've
film.
done. Yeah, what they've done.
And so I think that's the real key of this, being willing to tackle the automation side of things and use automation for what it is good at, but don't try to automate the most complicated things that you have. Automate your simple things that have to be done 1,000 times. Focus on that, focus on getting those that feed your
Get
metrics.
the quick wins, basically.
Get your quick wins, but get automation. Henry Ford did not build a factory to build cars on an assembly line and try to create the self-driving car. Right? That's a very complicated thing to do, versus he built cars that were very simple, but he could mass produce them. Focus on what you can do, and now you're building Teslas in basically automated factories.
And what would your key takeaways be, Tony?
I think the biggest thing is resiliency is everybody's job. I don't want to reuse the security line, but it's the same mantra. You can see resiliency and building resiliency from day zero into your pipeline, into your platform, into your capability, into your application. It's everybody's job. And if we've talked DevOps for a decade now, we need to truly embrace what DevOps means. It's the merging of development and operations together to make application development and operations and resiliency one thing. And that's what that's what we need to embrace today. If I have to push one mantra, it's that. Dev and ops need to come together to make sure that resiliency is key, especially as we move into a much more complicated world of architectures and cloud and mainframe and systems talking to others. There's more dependencies out there. You can't just have your platform and your data center surrounded by your walls and moats and guards. Everything's connected to everything. So you have to build in the idea that at any moment something could happen and that could go away.
I think that's a fantastic summary. Guys, really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
You've been watching another episode of Infrastructure Matters. Please click and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you very much for watching.